where actually, in truth, everybody has an interesting story to tell,
Yes.
provided you give them the courtesy of a damn good listening to.
If you have steak and you're standing in a field of giraffes, they will not buy. Doesn't matter what you do. You can stand on your head, you can hit them in the face with it. They are not going to buy it. So rather than trying to force your steak on giraffes, go and stand in a field of lions who you don't even have to work hard. Just stand up and wave it and they're going to come running. And that's why giraffes don't eat steak.
You put cherry on the cake with stuff like, what's a favourite quote that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future? With the gift of hindsight, what notes, help or advice would you proffer to a younger version of yourself? Now, you don't have to be ancient to be able to tackle these questions.
This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast.
The podcast for curious marketers who zig when others zag.
Chris Grimes shares how curiosity and deep listening can transform the way we connect, on stage, in business, and in life. This episode explores what it really means to stay on the bus and trust the long road to creative distinction.
Hello, Alex.
Hey Erica, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. Nice and cozy in my woolly jumper.
I'm getting very hot here, so I've got a fan on. I'm so excited to invite our podcast today, Chris Grimes. Welcome, Chris.
Yes, tickety-boo and happy to be here.
Welcome, Chris. Great to have you on.
So Chris and I have never met in person, which is quite a common theme with our podcast guests, I think.
It's
But
more normal.
It
than
is
meeting
more
in
normal.
person.
But we met through networking. We met through Collaboration Global, which is Jill Tiney's organization. Jill's been on our podcast as well. But Chris and I were paired up to talk through Collaboration, and we just hit it off. And we were like, oh, no, you have to come on my podcast. So welcome, Chris.
And thank you for having me on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. And I've been enamored with that title ever since I heard it. And I've actually used it as stories to tell people about making sure you go to where your market it belongs.
Oh, love it. Love it. You're now our favorite guest. You've just become our favorite.
Music to our ears.
So for our audience and for Alex, Chris, tell us about yourself and your business.
So Chris Grimes is me. I'm based in Bristol, very proud father of Lily, who's 25. Stan is called Stan because I love Stan Laurel. He's 18, married to Janie for the last 33 years. I came to Bristol to go to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School way back when. So acting's in my DNA, but I work as a facilitator, coach, podcaster and broadcaster. Sorry, the broadcaster and podcaster words nearly didn't come out properly there. It all configures to me now transmitting, broadcasting, facilitating in an energetic space I like to call the clearing, which is where all good questions come to get asked and all good stories come to get told. So when I'm coaching, the clearing is that happy space that focuses on giving the other person a damn good listening to. When I'm facilitating, there's a lovely quote about facilitation I love, which is the best resource a good facilitator can bring into the room is themselves. And so it's this lovely stepping across the line into a space of curation, which is what I'm fascinated by in both my podcast scape, but also in my facilitation space, and also in my comedy improvisation space, because the clearing is also a comedy improvisational theatre in the round with an attitude of yes and. I'm riffing a bit, but what I'm describing is the fact that I work variously in a polymathic way using the core transferable skills of being an actor, drama teacher and comedy improvisation performer by training and background. And I call myself of late a motivational comedian, which has a story behind the story of itself actually as well. So yes, I'm delighted to be here. I'm just really passionate about connections and particularly storytelling, which is at the root of everything that I do.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
You tell from your opening gambit.
Thank you.
Brilliant stuff.
And it's so interesting because Alex and I were actually just talking about storytelling, weren't we, Alex? We were just talking about like the story of our name, right? Our marketing detective's name, that story, which is we're so passionate about it, we love sharing it. Or the story of how Giraffes Don't Eat Steak came to be. And storytelling is your business. And I think storytelling is so impactful in marketing. And it's so interesting when people hold back from sharing that story. And you're like,
Yeah, there's an
Why?
intriguing dynamic where actually, in truth, everybody has an interesting story to tell,
Yes.
provided you give them the courtesy of a damn good listening to, which of course is the power of asking the right questions to draw it out of people.
No, that's so true. And yeah, that's one of the things I find frustrating when Alex and I meet with new business owners and we start asking the questions and then they come up with this amazing story. We're like, why have you not shared that? What's wrong with you? That is so awesome.
What's wrong with these people? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think there's two reasons for that. One is they don't see the value in it, which we were discussing in our conversation earlier, Erica,
Yeah.
because they think it's an ordinary story. And I was saying to Erica, Chris, that you can relate that to when somebody says, "Oh, you're so good at doing X, Y, and Z. It's amazing." But you don't really see it as a special skill because it's just something that you've been doing your whole life kind of naturally. So you've not really seen the value in it before. And it's the same thing with stories. If someone has been through an ordeal of some sort, but for them, it's just what they had to do. That was just
Yes.
their life path. They didn't think it was anything special. In fact, they just, if anything, they thought it was a burden and something difficult that they didn't really want to do. But they got through it, and that story could be really powerful for someone else, but they might not see it in for that. They might not see it themselves. And the other one is they might be embarrassed about the
Yes.
story or
You,
their
you talked
or their
about
truth.
burden there as well. And of course, the hero story is how you overcome adversity as
Mm.
the hero or heroine in your own story. And I've been very struck recently with a guest on my show actually said something that's just resonated ever since. They said, we all of us are where we are today because of choices, decisions, actions that we took 5 years ago. And
Hmm.
life isn't just 5 year cycles, but interestingly, when you join the dots up backwards, often if you've been through pain, adversity, transition, something new has happened or something painful has happened. At the time, it felt catastrophic or it felt brilliant or whatever it was. But there is a truth in that. We are all of us where we are now because of 5 years ago, perpetually. And of course, 5 years ago in our history, as we speak together in 2025, is the beginning of the pandemic. And as my guest said that, I thought, "Do you know what? That's so brilliant because it's almost 5 years to the day that I got going on the path of the Good Listening To show, which came out of adversity because my work as a facilitator and a coach, here we are on Zoom, dialing in from Columbia and near Oxford and Bristol. How awesome is that? And how we take that for granted now. But that whole acceleration of familiarity has come about because of the adversity of the pandemic. And just while I finish a point about the pandemic, if it wasn't for the pandemic, painful though it all was, and we all experienced it very differently, I know that I wouldn't have even had probably what I feel is my greatest creative idea ever. But it was born out of great adversity.
You have to
What
tell
is
us
that?
now. What's the
Yeah, yeah,
idea?
yeah, exactly. I was
Oh,
like, wow,
well,
I've just been hanging off a cliff edge there.
oh, that's good. That was storytelling right there. I hooked you. Oh, tell me more. The tell me more thing is called a hook. We all know that. So when I
Yeah.
said earlier on, I wasn't deliberately hooking, but when I said I'm a motivational comedian, I can tell you a story about that and why that came about, and that's quite a comedy story. But the idea that I've just planted is I got going on the open road of the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Genius, and only in the last year have I struck the extra gold, which has been in the mountainscape of what I've been doing all along, where I got some external super objective advice going, whatever you do, dig up that golden nugget and put it on its own separate plinth. And it's a storytelling construct now within what I'm already doing called legacylifereflections.com, which is to record either your own story or the story of somebody really precious, near or dear to you for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late. With no morbid intention, but what's really profound about it is my father, about 5 years ago, was a very willing guinea pig. He knew exactly what I was doing, but I said, look, I've got this idea to go a bit deeper into legacy. Can I talk to you about it? Because it's about Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. My dad was a willing guinea pig. Wind forward 5 years. In about a week's time, almost to the day, it'll be a year anniversary of his death. And my dad very profoundly has become a bit of a mascot. Not in a deliberately morbid way at all. He knew what I was doing. He was willing. But I recorded him in the halcyon days of his 80s before he slipped into a crater of declining health. And now I still have his recording. You know, I don't need to say this, but I can't tell you how precious that is, because when we've lost that precious someone, what we often miss the most is the sound of their voice, what they sounded like. So I've got a picture of my dad toasting in his serious happy place. He was at Christmas Day in Madeira, and there's a lovely picture of him with a glass of wine saying to my mum, I interpret this picture of my dad saying, cheers to a good life. And that's become, you know, a really wonderful, energetic mascot for a realization that everybody's got somebody precious to them. And, you know, I love the fact that I've now found something that can genuinely help people. You know, you can spend, you know, months and months and months thinking about how you might go about recording somebody's story. But what I've come up with just takes 2 hours of one's life, 2 hours of your life, to record that precious life forever by drawing them through a unique storyscape that came about at the beginning of the pandemic, when I discovered and stumbled upon and invented the curated space, which is now the Good Listening To show.
Wow.
Oh, I love that. It's actually so timeless. Alex knows this, but my father-in-law passed away last week.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. At the amazing age of 93. But the mind, he's got, I don't know, 9, 10 children and hundreds of grandchildren, and so lots to remember him. But actually, at some point, all that knowledge of the richness of his life will be gone, right? Like
Yes.
it will all fade away because it's all in someone's memory. So I love what you do. And we actually, both Alex and I, worked in life insurance for many, many years. That's how we met. And also that connection, working with clients in that space, that's what they need, right? They want to be remembered.
Yes.
And through life insurance, they're doing it through money, right? They're leaving financial memories for their family to carry on. But actually, how powerful would it be if they also left that? And then just to say, for my own father, he passed away 5 years ago this year. But I was very sad when Skype died, right? Earlier this year, Skype closed down, because Skype was the only place I had a recorded message of my dad's voice. His voicemail was on Skype, so I kept that all along, and I'm like, no, don't kill Skype.
Have you
I
lost
wanted
the
to
file
keep
now?
it.
It was attached to the back infrastructure of Skype, was it?
Yes, I have. But it was like, oh no, Skype, that's the last. And, less and less, obviously, as time goes on. But in the beginning, I would often play
Yes.
his voice recording, which is just silly, going, hi, this is Ted Miller. I'm not here. Call me back later. But it still was the voice I had.
Part of my journey was a moment I recorded an actress who had a very, very famous dad. So in the UK, there was a very famous television sitcom actor called Richard Briers. He was in something called The Good Life, Ever Decreasing Circles. In the 70s and the 80s, everybody would have known who this super famous television actor was. His daughter, Lucy Briers, hasn't had the same, she's very successful, but hasn't had that sort of fame trajectory. But what was so profound is when I was recording her, she said she has a daddy cupboard. She's able to go into her dad's archive, like a whole cupboard full of DVDs and CDs and whatever, VHSs, and now digital, of course, but probably less so in his case. But if she needs a daddy top up to watch him be the genius he was, to hear him, to see him move, she goes into the daddy cupboard. And so that really struck me with, gosh, this is also what I feel I'm achieving, because I've got my own episode that when I need a top up of my dad, and I'm tuning into it quite a lot because of what I'm trying to achieve. But it is incredibly precious to be able to know exactly where you can go to hear that voice or that legacy soundbite, to conserve their wisdom, their laughter, their joy, their pain. The bish bash bosh of 3 score year and 10, to use the Shakespearean stereotype of how long. We're all hopefully going to be here a lot longer than that, but lest we forget before it's too late, ain't none of us getting out of here alive, and it's really, really important.
Oh, I love that. I think it's amazing. I really do. But how do you get, and if I think about my parents now, I think I would have struggled to get them to share their story. How do you get someone comfortable, Chris, with sharing that
You
story?
see, that's the lovely thing about, that lovely adage about also about one of my favorite slides that I reveal when I'm facilitating and coaching is it's all about the relationship, stupid. Nobody's stupid, but actually all of our success trajectory, afterburn, if you're talking about personal impact, all of our relationship legacy. It's great if someone feels ecstatic that you've left the room as opposed to depressed. But it's all about relationships. And so if you get somebody super objective who's a professional coach stroke storyteller who can draw it out of you, then it's the currency of the type of question that you ask. So what I don't do is go, hello, tell me about your life. That's far too vast. I curate my guests through a journey of a clearing a tree, a lovely juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's some alchemy, some gold, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, a golden baton, and a cake. Now, of itself, that's a bit random, but actually there's a structure within it, particularly the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which if I can just unpack, it's like shaking your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. You've had 5 minutes, my guest, or as long as you've needed before we've agreed that you want to do this, and this will be you, Erica, in a couple of months' time. You've had 5 minutes to have thought about and listen to how deliberately, it sounds surface, but it's deliberately seismic. I invite people to go where they like, how they like, as deep as they like, wherever they like. Your job is to answer the construct of 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention in your life trajectory, and borrow from the film Up. That's where the dog goes, oh, squirrels. We've all got monsters of distractions. We've all got squirrels, things that just distract us. So in your wonderful life, long life, happy life, sad life, tragic life, whatever your life has been like, what are your 2 things that never fail to stop you in your tracks? Whether it's the smell of a rose, a sunset, it could be a table tennis table, whatever it is, people answer it differently. Just going back a step, energetically, I position people to make them feel safe in the clearing. I've talked about that briefly, but your clearing is your serious happy place. Where do you go? Where have you always gone to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think when you need to take succor, be calm, or get inspired? So everybody answers that differently. You might be cogitating that now. That's interesting. Where would I go as my clearing? Could be a shower, could be driving down the AB486. It could be on the beach in Colombia. It could be wherever you like. I hope my geography hasn't let me down. There are some lands that are landlocked and there's no beach, but I'm hoping there are some beaches in Colombia.
Definitely beaches, yeah. You're
yes.
hit the nail on the
Sorry, I sidetracked myself there, but the unique sort of storyscape gets people to think differently. We also talk about alchemy and gold, which is when you've been at purpose in your life. What have you been absolutely happiest doing in what you're here to reveal to the world? And again, everybody answers that differently. We can talk about halcyon days. When in your lovely, rich life have you been at your happiest? My father once danced with Princess Margaret when he was head of the Ball Society at Keele University, when he was more concerned with being head of the Ball Society than with his studies. And he took me and my brother and sister, all of us under the age of 8. He emigrated in the 60s, which is very pioneering, to Uganda, where I grew up between my being 2.5 and 10. And I know that the halcyon days of my dad's life were the life and times we had in Uganda. Why that was obviously of itself a profound seismic experience. But when we returned to the UK, and nobody's life is easy, my sister was killed in a car accident in 1979. We'd returned in 1972. And that's when obviously a huge shadow obviously pitched up over the family. The sort of like a life cataract moved over the life of my parents, particularly. I'm a parent. I lost a sibling in my sister Hazel, but now I'm a parent. I appreciate how utterly more seismic it would be to lose a child as well and a sibling. They're both tragic in different ways, but it's just, beyond tragic if you lose a child. So anyway, again, it's not the structure is not afraid of going deep. And that's important because we've learned through adversity. And then finally it ramps up to talking about Shakespeare, having awarded my guests with a cake as well. We talk about cake, whether you like cake. You put cherry on the cake with stuff like, what's a favorite quote that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future? With the gift of hindsight, what notes, help or advice would you proffer to a younger version of yourself? You don't have to be ancient to be able to tackle these questions. And then what we're ramping up to through other constructs based on where the person wants to go, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given by somebody else? But what we're ramping up to is Shakespeare, to talk about the 7 ages of man. All the world's a stage and all the men and women nearly players. We all have our entrances and our exits. How, when all is said and done, would you most like to be remembered? And again, that's a beautiful cherry on the cake question. And because I recorded my dad, I know how he wants to be remembered. And then staggeringly, when we went to the funeral, I didn't know this, but my brother had sent the funeral celebrant my episode with my dad so she could get a clearer understanding of him. And on the way to the funeral, because I'm passionate and obsessed with my podcast, my family, I'm probably not allowed to swear, but they said something with an expletive attached. They said, whatever you do, don't mention your fucking podcast as we're driving to the funeral. Anyway, we were there going during the funeral, but the funeral celebrant was so blown away with what she'd just seen of a life. She mentioned it totally without any nudge from me 14 times. So I was in the audience a bit being like Steamboat Willie going because she kept mentioning it. Thus proving that there's something in the ability to be able to, in a different way, conserve people's stories. And so from a marketing point of view, the world is huge and the world is my oyster, but it's a real challenge. I don't want to go to funeral homes, I really don't, because you only want to go there once if you can possibly fathom that. I don't necessarily want to go to life insurance entities either. But end of life care in the hospice movement, maybe that would be a wonderful gift to be able to give to someone who's knowing their time is running out. But also, all of us know our time is running out. I'm going to. Is this all right? I know I'm really monologuing. Is this okay?
No, it's
No, it's fine.
perfect.
Yeah,
And
keep going.
please interrupt me whenever you want to.
We will.
And I'm going to be at an exhibition soon talking about this. And, the premise being everyone's got an interesting story to tell. These are going to be 1,500 very serious-minded entrepreneurs. But I know for a fact that every one of them is going to not just be obsessed with their business, because they've also got either themselves, their own legacy they're worried about, their own mortality they could be worrying about, or concerned about. Worry is a seismic thing. It can vary in degrees, but everybody will have somebody that they'll think, in the same way that Erica, you chimed with your parental experience as well. We've all got not regrets necessarily, but we've got wishes about whether we spent the time to conserve people's stories.
Absolutely. Oh, I love your structure. I think even my mom, who's doesn't really like talking about herself, would come up with quite an awesome journey through that. I think
it's been called an oasis of kindness. So there's no agenda in it. As I said with my dad, there was no morbid intention, but we both knew what I was doing because it was the halcyon days of his 80s, as I've already mentioned. But it is an oasis of kindness, and my intention, even when I'm facilitating, coaching, being in front of an audience through comedy improvisation, I want to help people, and I want to make people laugh. And forgive me, I know you asked me about 15,000 hours ago, how I make people relaxed in what we're doing, but it is all about the relationship. And when I meet with people, whether they want to do this, that like trying to choose a coach or a therapist, it's not therapy, but it is actually therapeutic. People have got to decide yin yang, whether they would trust me as the trusted advisor to curate their relative or themselves through the story. And I'm not wedded to whether that's a yes or a no. That's don't be too attached to outcomes. It's just there as something to attach yourself to if you'd like to.
Is this done online or in person?
Lovely question. It's actually both. The ability to go global means I can do it on Zoom remotely, but there is a podcast studio. And I've recently I did a show with a very famous actor in a comedian in England called Rob Brydon, and he did a live theatre show. And I had a competition running where I've awarded a Legacy Life Reflections gift to one of the audience members, who scanned a QR code and then explained in great detail why they'd like to win, which was, nobody else did that. They just scanned and gone, yeah, I'll enter the competition. Whereas this other person went a bit deeper. And on the 1st of September, as we record together in August, they're coming into the live studio. They're absolutely thrilled they can go public with it. But there is a choice to go public or private. My idea is that most people will want to do it as a private thing for their nearest and dearest. But if you also feel really loud and proud about your story and want to go global, then my podcast can introduce my guests to quite a large audience, because of my also having a show on UK Health Radio with what I'm doing. The Good Listening To show is on UK Health Radio, and it's enjoying Desert Island Discs type status, if that's a program that's familiar to you.
Yeah.
And so it's a very exciting time, because there's syndication opportunities. Because I'm genuinely passionate about it, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon. This is a real pivot point for me, where as I mature myself, I'd love to be able to really sort of double down on using storytelling to help people, one story at a time.
Sorry, Alex. The reason that I love that as well is so for my dad, too late. So what we did is just collected stories from the family, and I put it together in a book. But what was interesting is the same incident, 4 or 5 of us would have had different impressions about what we think my dad felt, thought, what his attitude was. And so it's quite interesting our different perspectives of our relationship with my dad, right? Even, so I'm one of 3 sisters, and even the 3 of us who grew up with him as the father and very similar had completely different views about what he thought or what he felt or that kind of stuff. And so I think that's important in marketing, because we are always trying to think like our client, but we're still thinking like us. And that's also why we say to our clients is, you need to talk to your client, because no one will be able to share that story like your clients. There just isn't. We can sit here and do all the research in the world. I mean, we can study them. I've studied my dad for 40 years, right? And yet my sister and I had completely different experiences and different thoughts.
You've made me think of Chekhov's The Three Sisters in your case, which is that wonderful play. I don't know if you know that one.
I don't.
but the 3 sisters are always wanting to go to Moscow. Oh, Moscow! I wish I'd been to Moscow. It's a Chekhovian plays are brilliant because of the yawning subtext beneath the surface of what's actually going on. In fact, sorry, I might have confused. That might be the Cherry Orchard, actually. Sorry, but you've made me think of Chekhov, who's just a brilliant storyteller, the Russian playwright. Yes, so you're absolutely right. Talking to your audience, asking them the questions is the point, isn't it? You've got to ask the right questions.
And then you get the reality. But also interesting in terms of what you're saying is a lot of our clients that have started businesses, entrepreneurs, their target market is who they used to be.
Interesting.
And as we unpack it, we can see that the product or service they've created is to solve a problem that they had, and providing the support that they wish they had when they were there.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, the fix that we have to do to their marketing is just simply saying, stop thinking like you now, think like you then, right? Because the who you are now is the person who's past this problem. You don't have it anymore. So when you're speaking in that voice, the me who's past my problem, it's not the right voice. You need to think back to who you were when you were feeling this problem and use those words.
Lovely.
And so this is also lovely with what you do, is because you're helping come up with this authentic voice of someone for us to remember, to hold on to, but then we know the truth, right? And can respond appropriately to that.
And I commend you for taking the time and trouble and effort to do the book, because not everybody, I mean, everyone wishes they could do that. And in fact, you can send them the questions and say, go on, record them. But of course, from a marketing point of view, you know that when all is said and done, they probably won't get round to it. So enter the solution to the problem, because, let somebody else do it for you who knows what they're doing and can do it quicker, better. I'm not going down that quicker, better, cheaper route, which we all hate, but less effort. So to my proposition, the idea of, rather than spending months and months and months and months with a ghostwriter, or months and months and months doing it yourself, which is still incredibly valid. I think that book, it would be so precious to you. I don't doubt.
It is, yeah.
And so it's priceless. Yeah.
You actually just touched on two incredibly important elements to providing, being able to communicate your product or service in an extremely valuable way, and that's by reducing the amount of time and effort that someone has to do. A lot of the time, everybody's focusing mostly just on like social validation or what you will achieve, but actually, if you could just take away the amount of time and effort that somebody needs to do something, then it's very easy to convert them. That's always the hardest thing. Like, I can help you do this, but it's going to be a lot of time, a lot of effort to do that. But if you can reduce that and remove any time or effort that anybody has to do, the outcome and the social proof doesn't even need to be that strong. But if they don't have to do very much, it's like, oh, yeah, sure, may as well do that.
It taps into humans' sort of innate laziness of, do you know what, I can't be bothered,
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, do it later, right? That's the...
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll do it when I get a gap in my schedule, like going to the gym, which never is going to happen.
Yeah. That's why a lot of like done for you or guaranteed or performance-based offers are so successful, because it's like, well, I don't have to put much time or money or effort into it, and it's just done.
And to that very astute point you've just made about the two real core competencies required there, because I'm not a marketeer at my core, I've not solved that yet. So there may be future conversations we can have.
You should, because I mean, doing the book took me easily 4, 5, 6 weeks of nagging, because I wanted everyone who remembered my dad to have input, right? So, and then my mom was super, can you say that? Should we say that? Or do we want to say that? She was very political about, will X be hurt if we put that in? And like, no, but this is the real story. We have to put the real story in. But it took time, and I mean, it was a mission of love, and so I loved doing it, and I didn't mind nagging. We spoke about
and nor is it
earlier, Alex. I'm a good nagger, so nagging is good. But and
nor is it meant to replace that dynamic. It's a sort of a lovely, also you can do this too, because I would really encourage people to journal however they like, because journaling, as we know, externalizing ideas, getting into printed form nowadays is really precious, because I think we're getting much more superficial with how we photograph the world as well, or we photograph it rather than experiencing it.
Yeah.
I think for me the key was my children. I didn't want them to not know my dad, right? I didn't want them to miss out on, because we also moved countries, so there was another dynamic, so we were far away, right? So they didn't have the day-to-day experiences of him like some people do, and that kind of stuff. And so that was my driver. But I think this idea of yours, which is him sharing his own story, which I'm sure there's a lot of stuff he never told us, right? Because it just wasn't the right time, or wasn't it didn't come up, or wasn't appropriate, or etc. So what are the stories he could share? And then having his voice, I think that for me is so exciting and so wonderful.
And of course, obviously you only are able to achieve a snapshot, but what's really interesting in what people experience, I've been told, in going through the curation of it, the 5 minutes to have thought about actually can take a couple of weeks, where you keep thinking about it. So you've got to be very selective about the 4 seismic things that have shaped you. And of course, the powerful dynamic in the exercise that was, I just experienced the exercise somewhere else. And I've pulled together, magpied and squirreled all of my favorite storytelling metaphors or archetypes together into what I'm doing. But it does make people be selective about, what round about once a decade, all of us will have had, almost without exception, something pretty seismic that happened. And so as soon as you're beyond, you don't have to be 40 to do it either, doing the maths of that. But, there are, I mentioned my sister's death. That would definitely be one of my 4 things that have shaped me, obviously, as is living in Uganda. They may become part of the same thing. That could be one shapeage. And we'll all interpret it differently. And I think it stirs people's brains in the listening as well, because the other powerful dynamic is that for most of us, our stories can stay locked in, untold, unheard, unloved, unless you can externalize them or find a really powerful way to do that.
Yeah, and also I think people open up a little bit more to a stranger somehow than their loved ones, which is, would see a lot more value in what you're offering, because if I were to ask my mum or dad these questions, they might choose to omit some things, or feel a little bit less comfortable about something and maybe not go into too much detail. But if they're with somebody who's unknown and is not judging them, because everybody feels like they're judged by somebody they know in some kind of way or another, so you probably get even a little bit more authenticity than you would doing it yourself, asking those questions.
I remember,
like I asked you, Alex, you would have to say meeting me was your seismic moment, right? You'd have to say that.
Of course.
Sorry, Chris. Just
No, not at
just
all.
a joke. We love each other very much.
And how long have you worked together in the detective agency, marketing detective agency?
Like 2015, I think it was.
Okay. Happy 10 years. That's great.
Well, no, sorry, we met in 2015, but
Yeah.
marketing detective agency started in COVID as well.
Yeah,
So you two are here because of decisions and choices you made 5 years ago. Yes.
we
Yeah.
are.
Marketing detective agency is a COVID baby.
And when did the giraffes occur? Is that something you've always stuck to?
That was like
2 years ago. So the podcast is 2 years old, but we started recording, I think, 5 years ago. But we recorded episode 1 500 times and then never moved forward.
Yes. And congratulations, because as we know, the great stereotype, there are billions and billions and billions and there's another billion of podcasts out there, but most podcasters get stuck around about episode 7 stereotypically, because they suddenly realize how painful and relentless it is.
We're so lucky. We love talking about marketing, so that works for us. And we love awesome guests like yourself who just give us a new perspective and new things to think about. And that's so we're doing what we love, so that's good.
And I stumbled upon a marketing story recently, which you might like.
Yeah.
It's where I was invited to speak at a conference about sustainability, because my podcast studio is in a place called Future Leap, and they were sponsoring a festival of sustainable business. And so the real buzzword obviously is sustainability. So I thought, okay, it was just an excuse to be able to go on stage and talk about my podcast, I think. But what I did was I'd struck on a construct, which is I used a joke and then it had a serious undertone. And from a marketing point of view, the joke is, do you think that songbirds ever get pissed off with hummingbirds for never having bothered to learn the lyrics to the song? Position that, let it float, and said, how can we all sustain, there's the word, I got the word in, boom, how can we all sustain, from a marketing point of view, the pressure we all feel to bark into a sea of noise when we're competing with cacophony and chaos? And the punchline is, we actually all need to be a bit more hummingbird, because hummingbirds are quiet, they're beautiful, they're majestic, they can swoop in, they can get the nectar, and then they can buzz off, and they always make you go, how exquisite and how beautiful. So one of the antidotes to too much noise is to be very to pulse majestic with your own brand, with your own proposition, and be more hummingbird, as in stop just barking into the void like everybody else is. Listen more intuitively to where the nectar is. And again, I'm in the same world, so I haven't just become a hummingbird and I've solved my marketing, but it was quite an interesting way to position how do we sustain the pressure to be, in a world where there's so little attention span now as well, and doom scrolling and all of that stuff that goes with it. So
I love that.
So be more hummingbird is that punchline. And then may I tell you another favorite story about anyone who works in the creative endeavor, which I hope will really help your audience as well. Have you heard the allegory of the Helsinki Bus Garage?
No.
This is for any one of your listeners, or for you and I, us three. We work in the creative endeavor, do we not? Marketing agency, podcast, facilitation. You could be a photographer, illustrator, you're out there. Helsinki Bus Garage apparently has 20 parallel bus platforms all about, with all their passengers on board, ding, ding, they're all about to go off in exactly the same direction for 11 bus stops before they can possibly even leave Helsinki and go off into the delta of their own destination. So 11 bus stops. Anyone in the creative endeavor starting out in your career is impatient, because you want to prove your worth. So round about bus stop 3 or 4, you go, right, I'm going to get off and ply my trade. Hi, I've got a podcast. And then immediately the person says, oh, that's an original idea. Have you seen all these other famous podcasts that are happening? And you go, who? What? Or if it's a photographer, oh, have you seen this particular photographer's work? Very similar to what you're doing. And you go, what? Or there's a marketing agency I've discovered. Oh, have you seen the detective agency? And then everyone goes, oh, God. Goes back to Helsinki Bus Garage and gets on the bus and starts again. So the punchline, forgive me, does have an expletive attached, which you can choose to bleep. But the punchline is, stay on the fucking bus. Stay on the fucking bus, because you can only truly know your true worth, your true sense of hummingbird, your true differentiator if you stay on the flipping bus. And forgive me, I know I could have said flipping bus, but actually it's more punchy if you say what I actually said.
I agree.
And interestingly, I'm here to tell you, I've been on the bus all my life. I started on the open road of what I do when I graduated. I recently had a LinkedIn congratulations on my anniversary of being 38 years at Chris Grimes. And that's like 38 years as global head of myself. And staying on the bus, I'm still on the bus. This is my greatest idea, but I've only just struck on it in the last 5 years. And I've not thrown any bathwater out. It's actually bringing in all the best of all my experience and bringing it to bear in the clearing. So the clearing is a comedy improvisational space. It's the core of my podcast. It's the place I can bring to get them safe to talk about their legacy. It's where I facilitate. It's where I coach. I didn't know that until 2 or 3 years ago. And why? And I encourage you all to do this. Stay on your own bus, because that's the only way you'll ever find what makes you different or distinct or allows you to differentiate. And if I may, I'll also tag on. Can I tag on the motivational comedian story on the back of that as well?
Go for it.
Someone who's in Collaboration Global, a wonderful man called Mark Walmsley. Do you know who I mean? He runs the Arts and Culture Network. If you aren't already members, I would really encourage you. He's very, very generous, as we all are. When you meet him, he helps you. And that's what we love about entities that we enjoy. Great generosity. He talked about the use of what's called an operator word in your personal brand proposition. Something that you can say, and forgive me if you know this already, but something that you can say in what you do that makes people go, wait, what? And my operator word is to say that I'm a motivational comedian. Rather than saying, hello, I'm a comedian, or hello, I'm a motivational speaker, or interestingly, an example Mark gave is if someone's an osteopath, rather than saying, hi, I'm an osteopath, here's my business card, what he encouraged them to say is, hello, I'm a preventative osteopath. And can you hear that makes you go, wait, what? In other words, if you pay me to fix your bat, you won't need to pay me again because I'll fix it for you, is the idea from a marketing point of view. So motivational comedian happened again during the pandemic. Stay on the bus. I was on a bike ride during the pandemic for those sort of brief opportunities of exercise we could all take. And I bumped into, not literally, but I met a friend who I hadn't seen since about 3 years before the pandemic, somebody who works at the BBC or used to, called Ben. And he had his son behind him called Dan, Ben and Dan. And Dan, the son, when I'd last seen him, was, about that high. But suddenly this man mountain, like my own son now, my son is 6'4" and I'm getting patted on the head quite a lot. This staggering growth. And I said something lame, as you do when you meet a child that's now a man. Oh, you've grown, or something like that. Anyway, the son hung around while Dad and Dad shared survival of the zombie apocalypse pandemic stories. And then the son's there going, I thought we were going out for a bike ride. Anyway, as we were about to ride off, I went, see you, Dad, love you. And I was still in earshot. Dan said to Ben, the dad, who was that? And I was still in earshot. And he went, oh, that's Chris Grimes. And I was still in earshot. And he said, what does he do then? And then Ben said, oh, he's a motivational comedian. And then off they cycled. And I stood there in my clearing and I thought, boom, I'll have that. I would never have thought that I'm a motivational comedian. Now on the business card I showed up, it says there on the bottom, Chris Grimes, motivational comedian. And that's because somebody else told me, and that became my operator word. So this isn't about me. When I'm trying to tell you stories, as your audience, I hope you appreciate, I'm trying to get you to resonate about your own life. What can we all do or say that gives us our own operator word, that gives us a level of hummingbird or distinction or differentiation that makes us unique or distinct? If I'm facilitating in front of an audience at this point, I might get everyone to say, repeat after me, all 500 of you, we're all individuals. Ready? We're all individuals. And now can you say, Bear? I'm not. Of course, we are all individuals, and that's the whole flipping point. We all need to operate in a way that's our own version of being. I mean, yes, we do generic tasks in life, and not everybody's got a sexy job, shall we say. But of course, there's mundanity to every job. It's not just all glamour and, hysterical laughter in my world either. There's lots of pain in what I have to do in all of us, and I'm sure you can resonate with that too. So yes, those are my two stories. Helsinki Bus Garage, you're welcome, and Be More Hummingbird, and whatever you do, stay on the bus. We're all individuals, and I can't, yes, operator words.
Love it.
Mic drop. Chris, that was so amazing. I loved all of it. And I think, Alex, our operator word that we found was marketing detective, right? That's
Yes.
what we are. We are the marketing
right.
detectives.
I outside looking in, that's very, very hooky. And again, I congratulate. Do your audience always know why you're called Giraffes Don't Eat Steak? Because it's a great marketing story.
We have to explain it a bit, but we do try and put it in quite a lot.
I was sort of inviting you to do it again if you wanted to at this point.
Ooh, look at you. Well, if you have steak and you're standing in a field of giraffes, they will not buy. Doesn't matter what you do. You can stand on your head. You can hit them in the face with it. They are not going to buy it. So rather than trying to force your steak on giraffes, go and stand in a field of lions who you don't even have to work hard. Just stand up and wave it and they're going to come running. And that's why giraffes don't eat steak.
And you're being kind to the lions because they'll probably nom 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 see you as a steak as well if you're in the wrong place.
But
By
also,
God, you'll sell it. Yes, absolutely.
the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak is, you hear the name, you think, huh?
Operator word. Wait, what?
What does that mean? Thank you very much for asking. I will tell you right now.
Hook words. Yes. Anyway, I really sincerely, not just because I'm here on the show, I'm flattered and I'm loving being here, but I also commend you for your name.
Oh, thank you. Well, we've loved having you, Chris. Time has flown. Where can people find you? How do they get hold of you?
Oh, thanks for asking. So Chris Grimes on LinkedIn, and I say I am Spartacus, which is just a sort of slightly comedy way to get people to go, what? And I am Spartacus has a serious point to it because so many people say to the world, rather than I am Spartacus, they say, am I Spartacus? Do you mind if I'm Spartacus? Would it be okay with you if I was kind of like Spartacus? We can disappear behind the line. So self-advocacy confidence, giving yourself permission is the energetic difference between saying I am, and I often encourage people in audiences to say I am versus am I, just the reversal of two different words, but a profoundly different personal impact. So I say on LinkedIn, I am Spartacus, your go-to partner for more effective communication skills, training, coaching, and storytelling through secondcurve.uk, the word second and curve as in not straight. Secondcurve.uk is my training, coaching, and facilitation entity. And then rather excitingly now in my pivot, thegoodlisteningtoshow.com is where my podcast is housed. And then I launch on a platform called Buzzsprout and on UK Health Radio. So there's secondcurve.uk, thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. And then really, really excitingly, because none of us stand still, none of us stay the same, it's now legacylifereflections.com. Legacylifereflections.com is the thing I've been most enthusiastic about riffing on about, because that's using the same storytelling construct of the Good Listening To Show, the clearing the tree, the squirrels, the baton, the Shakespeare, the cake, but to record your story for posterity. So if you'd like to get in touch, LinkedIn is the best place to look on our platforms. And then listen out for the podcast too. And if I can help you with your own operator words, anyone listening, I'd be delighted to help you.
Amazing.
Oh,
Love it.
fantastic. Alex, what is your biggest takeaway from listening to Chris?
Well, I think it's the operator word. I think it has to be that. And that there's the saying, your business isn't how you describe it, it's what your customers say about you. So I think you can use that saying to find your own personal operational operator words. And I love your story of how you overheard that from someone else telling their son about you. And I think that is very, very powerful. That's a very authentic way. But I can't recommend that everybody try and go on a bike ride with their friend and their son, just hoping that they're going to find out what their operator word is.
And one other final plug is the Good Listening To Show is also there's a series strand called Leadership Reflections, and there's also something called Best of Bristol Voices. It's also a live theatre show as well, which can be good for a client or conference or corporate event, or just a wonderful theatre show where you get a sort of celebrity bum on a seat and you hear the story behind the story of being that awesome person that's agreed to sit down. So it's a really exciting evolution of a new universe of storytelling.
Love it.
Love it. Yeah, great. Thank you very
Chris,
much.
thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so fascinating having you on board and talking through all the exciting things you're doing and the power of stories, right? Which is the heart of everything we've spoken about today.
And thank you so much for having me as well. I've really enjoyed myself. And sorry that if we get your podcast editor to tell you the stats of who spoke the most, you've definitely allowed me to talk for about 99% of the time.
And we love it that way. It's absolute gold for us. Alex, it's a pleasure as always, and I will see you again soon.
Thank you.
I'll see you on my podcast very soon too, Erica. And get in touch if you'd like to too, Alex.
Bye all.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Giraffes Don't Eat Steak, where curious marketers zig when others zag. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with someone who loves great marketing conversations. And don't forget to follow, review, or drop us a note. We love hearing from fellow curious minds. And if your own marketing's feeling a bit tangled, check out our Marketing Power Hour. It's a focused one-to-one session designed to help you get clarity and momentum. Just go to themarketingdetectives.com and book your slot. Until next time, keep zigging.